We have another perspective on the subject, women and society. Conversation with Depika Jain. Depika Jain is a civil servant and a social scientist. Depika believes in harmony and time to fill up the gaps.
I have slightly unconventional views on women, unconventional in the sense that they're slightly different from what people generally call feminist views. I think it's a question of how evolved you are as a person and as a society in terms of what you feel is a woman's position in life, in society, in general. I really believe that it doesn't matter beyond a point whether you're a woman or a man. You just two genders of a species and you can play certain roles and you can do that harmoniously. And one role doesn't need to be inferior or superior to the other. And these are things that have historically been there. It's a part of the evolution of society, of human society. And at some point of time, I think these differences will dissolve themselves. And to say that women are better at this or men are better at that is really not an issue that I think too much about. And I mean, I've grown up in an environment which was where there were a lot of males around. I have brothers, I have sons. I haven't had in my close environment while growing up, and even now, too many women, though I do have close friends. And I think that may have helped me in a way to understand that it doesn't really matter, because I was also brought up in a manner where not much differentiation was made in terms of what a girl can do and what a boy can do. It was left pretty much to my individual choice. There are a few restraints and constrictions in society that you have, given the fact that there's violence against women, and that physically in some way we are the weaker sex. But as we evolve as a society, and violence and the dependence on physical labor, physical strength is going down, and that's not the thing that we hold to be the superior we value now so much. It's what the mind can do. And once you reach a state in society where it's essentially what the mind can do, and also beyond, what the consciousness and the soul can do, I think those things really dissolve. And even if you go by what our ancient scriptures say, and if you believe in karma and reincarnation, you're a man in one life and a woman in another, and you have qualities of both genders. So I really think that it's not a debate which troubles me too much. But I do believe that when we talk of issues of what ails women, or what is the problem, what are the problems that women face, I really think it's a question of the within the broader paradigm of injustice in society. So if you do feel that at some stage of evolution in society women are disadvantaged in some ways, then as a society as a whole, just as we look at other groups which are disadvantaged in some ways, certain racial groups or other groups, we just need to make sure that those injustices are taken care of. And the primary thing for everyone is to raise their daughters in a way that is gender neutral. To not let them grow up with the feeling that you're a girl, therefore you can only do these things or you cannot do other things. I think we have to truly move towards a society which is gender neutral, which is already there to some extent in some parts of the world like Scandinavia and other European countries. But to say that girls are better and is again the other end of the same paradigm where girls were disadvantaged. We are in some ways moving towards becoming a society, at least in the developed world, where men are actually in some ways disadvantaged. That also is not right. So I think the bottom line has to be that you have to ultimately be gender neutral to the extent possible, and it should really become a non-issue at some point of time.
Yes, very well said, Depika. But there are certain things which should have happened to the cause of women about equality socially,
Yes, sir.
politically and
Yes.
economically.
It will happen, sir.
It will happen,
It will
but
happen.
the pace which is happening is a bit slow.
So the pace is slow. Again, I would say that I've seen a radical change happen in the middle class. Where 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people were not spending so much time, energy, effort on the education of their daughters. Especially now that you have nuclear families, smaller families, and there are a lot of people who may have one daughter. You'll see a lot of families today with one daughter. That was not the case maybe 20 years ago. Now people who decide to have one child, and if the first child happens to be a daughter, they're happy with that fact, or even two daughters. I personally know a lot of such people, and they educate them. They spend a lot of time and effort on bringing up their daughters well and making sure that they do something good with their lives. That was perhaps not the case long, and generally these changes do always come from the middle class. And I see that really vital change that has come in the middle class. If you attend a parent-teacher meeting in a school, parents of daughters who are studying in school are as concerned, if not more concerned, than parents of sons, who have boys. And I think that's a very vital change. It may not have come at the lowest levels of society in some ways, but if you go to a village today, where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have seen girls wearing their traditional attire, a salwar kameez or a ghagra or something, you'll see a lot of girls wearing jeans, and you'll see them wearing a kurta on top or something. That's a sign of liberation. A lot of domestic help that you have at home these days, girls who come from the villages, they all have cell phones and they all wear Western clothes. I'm not saying Western clothes are necessarily a sign of liberation, but at that level of society, it does tell you something. It is indicative of the fact that they are breaking through, they're breaking the bonds which held them down earlier. And so change will come. I think social media is a very powerful instrument of change, and now that everyone has access to it, the number of mobile phones we have in India, every second person literally has a mobile phone. And I think that change is coming, and we've seen in the papers recently the fertility, the birth rates are going down and people are having smaller families. And I think that change will come. We are not one country, we are a multitude, there's so many countries in India. And because of the complexities, it's difficult to say, what are the tangible changes that are happening, but there are a lot of changes which have happened.
I like the word you said, liberation, because whenever you use the word liberation, primarily liberation is against some atrocities or injustice.
Yes, sir.
So historically there has been, so we hope things will improve. Thank you,
I'm
Depika.
sure they will, sir.
Thank you for this
Thank you
conversation.
so much, sir.